The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Welcome to the Influencer's Edge. This is the place where you come to get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques to leapfrog over the pack in sales, persuasion, and influence. Be sure you visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, tune in, and enjoy today's episode. Welcome back to the Influencer's Edge. This is the show where we disconnect the dots, color outside the lines, and say it with me at home. Think outside the box. Today, I love having healers and change workers. This has been a recent orientation of mine. If you've been following the show, you know that today we have Monica Bermudez. Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Monica is joining us from Mount Shasta. I have a friend, I had a cousin who lived right in Mount Shasta, and she said there are all sorts of strange goings on there. So
Oh, yeah.
that's a topic for another time. But we're going to dive into Monica, and I want to talk to you. So you are a purpose empowerment coach and cosmic channeler. Let's pause right there. What in the world do you, Monica Bermudez, living in Mount Shasta with that beautiful background, what do you mean by purpose? Everyone has a different definition, and we like firm, clear, crystal, diamond, laser definitions here on the Influencer's Edge. So what in the world do you mean by
Yeah, I like the
purpose?
question. So for me, it's really just an embodiment of your own soul because it's in our soul that we find all our answers. And when I say soul, I'm talking about our higher guidance, inner guidance within. So there, everybody has a purpose, and that purpose in general for us, being here on Earth, I see it as an Earth school. So we're all here to learn different things and experience, different ways. And with that experience comes different perception. And then, so that's one of the biggest part of purpose, right? Is having that experience. From that experience, you get the wisdom, from that. And you yourself become your own role model or your own teacher, to be a teacher is to be a student also. So in a way, though, we're being like students here. So that's one of the biggest purpose for us to be here now alive, right? So living is just a big part of that, purpose. Um,
Let me pause you there and push back a little bit. I told you at the very beginning I would do that.
yes.
Isn't it the case that people's purpose changes as they grow in life? For example, some people have the purpose. My Buddhist teacher, his purpose early on in life was to make lots of money and get the houses and the women and stuff. And he was fine with that, fulfilled him and then he reached the point where he thought, this is not the life. And then he developed a different purpose. Isn't it an error to say purpose as if that's something we have for our whole life? Doesn't our purpose change when our life changes and we have to take on a different vision?
Yeah, so purpose, there's multiple ways of purpose, right? Our purpose could be just to be like have certain family or have like certain jobs or have certain business. It evolves, right, in a way. And I feel like there's different layers that resurface through our life, where in a part of us in our soul is not going to give us everything all at once because at a human aspect from us, human perspective, there's only so much that we can take in that one moment. So there is like this whole synchronicity and divine timing that occurs through our life path where there's another aspect of us that gets reawaken, I would like to say, or activated or triggered, is another word for it. And so we all of a sudden get this sudden desire of this sudden shift into something else that we're feeling called to. And so you'll feel that calling within your own heart of a new direction. And so, yes, that takes on a whole new like level of like purpose. So I
Well,
don't really,
new direction is very important to me. I think people need to find a new direction.
yeah.
New directions are powerful
Hmm.
when you
Yeah.
let them come inside and really grasp them
Hmm.
and get it. So I get that. Now you
Hmm.
said you're a channeler. Right away, I got to tell you, this gives me pause. Again, I'm being having a heart to heart, human to human conversation with you.
Hmm.
'Cause when you channel, isn't it possible that you bring inward entities or whatever that are masquerading as being
Hmm.
benevolent, but in reality they're tricksters at best
Yeah.
and they're malevolent and evil at worst. I've had experience with tricksters. They're
Yeah.
not just like to play games. They're not out to hurt you. They're just bored and are entertaining themselves. So isn't that the case that you run that risk?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked this question because that's one of the things that I've been messaging a lot in my messages for people who are starting to channel or get into it to really develop their own, because the clairsentient part of it, which is one of the psychic abilities, is really
Can
the
you
feeling
define
of
what
it.
clairsentience is for our audience?
So, yeah, that's what I was going to define. The clairsentient is how we feel in our body, like mostly in my heart, where I feel it in my solar plexus, my stomach, the gut feeling. So you could say like in human terms, like we say, right, the gut feeling, right? And so for me, is really the senses of like our body is like an instrument that really can sense when there is something that's off, right? You walk into a room, right? And there's something else off by this room. I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel right to me. Something doesn't feel like it's in alignment to this place, or it feels dark, or it feels really heavy in here. I don't know if you ever experienced that, but
I had it today, grocery shopping. One of the
yes.
clerks was talking in a way. I was very calm. I'd come out of meditation like 2 hours previously.
Hmm.
But I got anxious and my blood pressure must have spiked a little bit because there's something about her voice that just said, this
Hmm.
person is just really chaotic and maybe using something.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of there. I
Yes.
wanted to stay because there's a very attractive lady I was trying to chat up, but I had to get out
See,
of
but
there.
you already have it. So most of us have it, but don't even realize it. I know that we use a lot of these terminologies when it comes to like channeling and psychic, but really if I'm trying to like change it in terms of how we're used to like expressing it, so for me, it's like another side of intuition, another side of psychic abilities. And all of us have the ability to channel. All of us have all of these abilities. So when it comes to channeling, it is that part of that discernment that is the much more important part. Because if you're clairvoyant, now let me explain, clairvoyant is to be able to see beyond the physical eyes, right? So we're going into our third eye and seeing beings that are beyond the veil, like so for instance, for people who see like ghosts, right? I used to be able to see ghosts like very much, very clairvoyantly, like as I am seeing you.
I wouldn't want that. I would like,
Right.
no, no, thank you.
Right, but so there's like, so when you see like certain like beings, right, that appear and they appear like this angelic form, so beautiful, so majestic, but in your gut feeling, you're feeling it doesn't really feel like an angelic energy to me. There's something that's trickster there. And so that's where you bring in your other clairsentient is that discernment part to know that this is a trickster energy or it's actually an angel that's coming through, that is speaking in that moment.
So I don't particularly believe in angels. That if you want to believe in it, you can. I've seen UFOs, so I'm no one to
Mhm.
criticize. Uh, I've often had this thought. I want to share it with you. I want to push back again, toss
Mhm.
another dart at you, if I will,
Okay.
lovingly. But it's here. Come, hold on. Can you hear that fire engine?
Yes.
I live right by a hospital, like 1,000 feet from the emergency room door. So we have them all hours of the night. You get used to it, all hours of the day and night. I've often thought if there's a veil between us and the other side, there's a good reason it was put there, and it ought not to be messed with. It ought to be
Mhm.
left closed. If it's put there, whatever put it there had a purpose and a reason greater than our own desire to penetrate it. Do you think there's any merit in that? I'm not a believer in the Bible at all, but one of the commandments is don't go to a soothsayer or a fortune teller. It's an abomination before me, and blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. Do you think there's any merit to the idea that that veil, if it's there, this is not really something we ever cover here, but it was interesting to me. Don't you think there's a good argument that says that veil was put there by something wiser than us, and we ought not to mess with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility, or it could be that we knew that coming into these bodies that we would be in a forgetful mode, to rediscover and reopen ourselves up to that awakening layer and to his kitty.
Black cat, good luck.
Yeah, I love
Black
it.
cat is good luck.
So it could be that we knew that coming in, knowing that it would be the biggest test and challenge for us from a school standpoint, you know? So yeah, it could be a possibility that, that's the reason, the biggest reason is there is from this other intelligence force that's there as part of our test, as humans to experience all of this, to forget everything and to, um, and just learn, from that role that we chose that, being that who we are now, who we identify ourselves, by name. Paul chose to experience this right now for himself, this life to get several kitties and
This one is the most high maintenance, anxious, separation anxiety, demanding
oh,
animal who's ever possessed me. I've had
cute.
many cats. She's worse than Dalmatian dogs, and Dalmatians are super high energy. She's impossible. I'm doping her up on gabapentin, and I'm going to have to increase the dose. I got to call into the vet. But anyway, let's get back to something. You talk
Yeah.
about the hero's journey in your work.
Hmm.
So I don't think, are you talking about a hero in the classic Greek myth sense, like Perseus or Hercules, who had impossible tasks to do, but he managed to complete them with the help of with gifts from the gods? What are you talking about with hero's
That
journey?
would be a
Do
nice one to
people
look at.
Yeah, well, for example, my hero as a kid was Muhammad Ali because I loved his being able to stand up to
Mhm.
authority, his ability to provoke people, and his skill in the ring. He was
Yeah.
one of my heroes and is to this day. So, what do you mean by hero? Is that someone we admire and worship? Is
Well,
it ourselves? What the hell do you mean by that, Monica Bermudez in there in Mount Shasta?
well, that one sounds really interesting to me. So I really love the Greek story and all that, but all of that is fine too. But what I was referring to was the Joseph Campbell
Right.
version of that. I don't know if you heard of that, but it's the hero, with a thousand faces, going through different journeys and different stages in our life. When we, like, for example, I'll share this with you. When I went through my divorce, I really felt like I was going into this whole unknown territory, right? And so I felt like things have really shifted and changed, obviously. And so that's what, the hero story talks about, going from what seems like, that you're used to seeing. And then when you go into like this whole loss, you can jump into like this dark night of the soul, as they express it. He talks about that in one of the stages. And then you're getting into this whole unknown territory. You don't know what's going to happen from there, right? So there's a lot of fear and worry and all this other stuff. And so when you're able to get through these like different stages, what's emerging is, this version of your own hero that you are, because you've already gone through the fire, you've gone through the challenges of your own fear and worry, and from there, just embracing that and changing all of that into jumping into like this new version of you.
Isn't fear and chaos my Buddhist teaching? I'm embracing Buddhism more. I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm embracing it more. The Buddhist teaching is we're always going to have chaos and we're always going to have uncertainty. And even when we get what we want, it's never going to be what we want it to be. And there's always going to be dissatisfaction woven into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to get your feedback on that. Don't you think that we're never ever going to be fully happy. And maybe that's not what we're here for anyway.
I think it's all just part of a journey, as the Buddhist teaching will tell you, right? It's not really about the final destination. It's to me, it's like a cycle of things. And I like how the hero's journey does portray it as being a cycle, of like we go through like a different, if there's a new loss, there's a new change in our life, something like who moved our cheese, right? For example, like
Yes, classic book.
like who moved my cheese? Now I have to like go back and figure out, this whole new like way of doing things, and you get all stressed and like overwhelmed, and so another form of chaos, right, comes up. Another, I find that chaos and all of these things are like catalysts to me, a fuel for growth, for an evolution of self. We're always growing in a different way and expanding in that way. It's a whole evolution of personal development.
Or we stagnate and we surrender to fear and
Yeah.
complacency, and we surrender to the illusion that we're living our best life.
Just give up.
If there is such a thing
Yeah.
as a best life, I don't know that there. I think we've
Well,
been.
that's based on perception, right? What is your best life?
I
Everybody
don't know. I
has a
think we've
different
been
answer.
sold. I think we've been sold a pretty shoddy bill of goods. It says we all have to be famous. We all have to reach all
Um,
our goals. I think there's a place in life. This is my opinion. You push back. I want to know what you
well,
think.
who
There's a
says that?
place.
First of all, who says that we have to be famous?
Well, it's this. I don't believe it for a freaking
Mhm.
second. I was famous for 30 years, and trust me, it is not what it's cracked up to be. It is
Right.
not
But
cracked.
that would be my first question is who says it? And first of all, it doesn't matter who says it because
I
what
agree with you. I'm
matters is
just
your own rule, right? You make your own rule, you make your own personal development, is really what's your driving factor is within yourself, your own intuition, your own gut feeling, in other words, to how it is that you are personally learning. You can't change someone else. You can't tell them, you could try, yeah, but
what's therapy
but it
for?
is
You
like
can't
saying that
change. Hold on, pause. What's if you can't change somebody else? Why am I paying my therapist? Of course you can change. You can assist somebody
influence.
changing.
Yeah, and it's also depending on like if the person is willing to make the change. Of course, if you're paying a
Have you
therapist, you
seen
have that willingness to want
Excuse me, have you seen a 3-year-old kid go to work on their parents to get an unwilling parent to let them stay up an hour late or to buy them an extra carton of chocolate milk? I think some people are
uh,
such good manipulators. They can get people
yeah, I
to
mean that's a good point, but yeah,
say,
so if you're going to like a therapist, right, to pay them, there is a will, there is a agreement there,
yes,
right? That
yes,
your
absolutely,
exchange of goods and services, I guess.
absolutely. So if you're taking people, let me ask you this. So and this is something that applies to all of what I consider to people call you haven't used the term, but people think of themselves as light workers. People are really into helping people find their soul's journey and all that. Sometimes I think, wait a minute, while you're examining your soul and finding your purpose, there's horrible evil going on in the world. There's child sex slavery and there's racism and anti-Semitism. Why aren't you getting up off your rainbow-filled, light-filled ass and doing something about the problem of evil in the world? So let me ask you, I'm not directing this at you, but I'm really throwing some hard challenges at you that you're handling.
Yeah.
You're fielding these hardball fast pitches I'm throwing right at you. Is there any space for looking with some eyes that say, there's bad shit going on in the world. In addition to working on myself, I owe myself and society a duty to address the
Hmm.
external evil. Once I've cleaned myself up, don't we sort of owe it to get out there and at least do something about the external evil in the world?
Yeah, so I mean, it all depends on the person who's being called in a different way. Some, may be called to be out in the field and actually pursuing this, and there may be many light workers right now who are actually on the field and taking action to, like, for example, like sex trafficking, like you said, right? And so
I would shoot those people. Forgive me for being violent.
yeah,
No, people
no.
who do that deserve no mercy.
Right. And so, but everybody's role is going to be different in that way, right? I'm just using that as an example.
Yes.
It could be any range of things, right, that you're feeling called to, right, and doing that moment. But let me just explain a little bit about light workers. I feel there is a bit of a misconception. A lot of people think light workers just all positive and rainbow and all this other, crap. Which to me is not the case because I see it as it's also the shadow aspect and the integration of that,
Talk
with the
about that.
light.
Dive
It's
into that.
not just all light, okay? Is there's shadow involved in this?
Let's
Don't
talk
ignore it.
about the shadow.
Don't
Let's talk
ignore
about
the shadow. Don't ignore it. Don't push it away. Don't force it away and say this is, I'm not gonna face this. I'm just gonna be all positive and like fluff. That to me is like fluffiness. And so I'm
that.
kind of tired of that,
Let's talk about the shadow, what the Buddhists would call ignorance, greed, and
Mhm.
anger is what permitted that. Underneath all that, we have the bodhicitta, we have the Buddha mind and Buddha
Mhm.
consciousness, but it's covered up with that. So let's talk about the shadow a little bit. What do you mean by it, and do you assist your clientele in working with it?
Yeah, so I look at the toxic patterns is what I call it, really for the shadow aspect. So if there's sabotaging patterns, like if you're really have a really low self-esteem, like you really consider yourself unworthy and a lot of doubt, a lot of, mistrust in self, not really like feeling really disconnected from self. And just being up here in the head, it's a combination of many things. I just help them reconnect themselves to the inner light that they have, inner intuition. For me, the intuition is like the light. The ego part of it is another like part of the shadow, which I call like the dark ego. But so the shadow ego, when it gets transmuted to be in alignment with our higher guidance, there's like a partnership, because we still need our physical body and the ego aspect to still live here on earth. So I don't really believe in this whole thing about killing the ego completely and it's gone, then you're like
No,
perfect,
it's bullshit.
right?
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
That's what
And
I'm
it's
trying to say by
ill-defined,
this.
and it's ill-defined anyway. It's ill-defined anyway. And any map, no matter how accurate, invariably misleads. Because
Mhm.
any map is incomplete, the territory is subject to change, so the map will no longer be accurate.
Yeah, so there's a
That's
lot of this misconception with light worker and killing the ego. People forget that death is also another word for that's transition, so it's a continuous change, cycle of change type thing.
Well, the Buddhist idea is something called storehouse consciousness. Buddhists don't believe, and again, I don't call myself a Buddhist.
Yeah.
They don't believe that the personality survives, but the momentum and all the stored experiences gets passed over like a flame from a candle will light the
Mhm.
next candle, and it's no longer the same flame. We are actually at the end of our time. It flew by. I know my audience is going to want to stay in the conversation with you. You could probably channel them without them contacting you. You'll know who they are. I'm just messing with you.
You're
So,
probably already channeling them, don't even realize it.
no, I don't. My own personal opinion is if there is such a thing, I want no. This is me, not you, me. I want no
Mhm.
part of it because again, if there is in fact another side, that veil is put there for a reason and a purpose by something that is far wiser than I. But nonetheless, my audience, some of them are going to want to stay in the conversation with you. How do they do that? And we'll also put it in the show notes.
Yeah, so I have different platforms on my social media like Facebook and Instagram where I have, post videos and even my podcast so people can find me there,
What
connect
is it?
with me.
You have
So
to.
my website, if you go to my website, you'll find all that. So if you go to www.sacredheartawakenings.com, you'll find all my ways of contacting me or staying in touch with me, whether that's through social media, my podcast, YouTube, you name it. You'll
Okay.
find me.
Well, Monica, stay with me after we're off the air for a brief chat.
Sure.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we've delivered something off angle of what we usually do, but I'm getting more and more into healing. So you're going to see more and more of this kind of topic. If you don't like it, fuck you. It's my show. See, I told you there'd be an F-bomb there. All right. So thanks, Monica. And as I always say at the end of the show, to the hostile alien armada hovering in your cloaked spaceships just outside of Earth's atmosphere, remember, eat the Canadians first. And we'll see you on the next episode
Thank you
of the
so much.
Influencer's Edge.
The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Rapid Sales Accelerator. If you're ready to skyrocket your sales by 30% or more in just 90 days, then you need to claim your free training right now. You'll learn 4 words that will compel your prospects to trust you like they were children within the first 3 to 5 minutes of any conversation across any platform and any medium. You'll learn how to give your prospects objection amnesia, to crush objections like, I need to talk to my spouse, or I need more time to think it over, or it's too expensive. If you'd like to claim your free training now, go to www.paulrossbook.com. Do it before your competition does it now. Thank you for tuning in to the Influencer's Edge, where you get the latest breakthroughs, cutting-edge insights, tools, and techniques so you can leapfrog over the pack in sales, influence, and persuasion. Remember to visit our website at www.theinfluencersedge.com to enjoy even more great episodes like this one. We look forward to seeing you again on the Influencer's Edge Show.